Tsuname's bringing back Saturday mornings. I'm going to show you it's 3 hours of quality Toonami programming, and it's not even a school day. The most anime on Saturday outside of Japan. Toonami, the rising sun. Saturday from 9 to noon. A day which will live in infamy.
Good evening, and welcome to the NEETwork, the podcast for all things NEET. I'm Theo, and with me, as always, is my friend Dexter. So, Dexter, I can imagine your NEET life is going basically the same as it's always been. Is that correct?
Yep, my work life is changing, but my NEET life is not.
Right. And it's the same for me, but I've had a weird kind of change in my attitude toward work. I guess it's not like I like it or I dislike it, but what's kind of been going on is I've been taking a really fast and loose approach with the rules of my workplace. And basically the only rule that I've been breaking is when some of the product gets damaged, we're supposed to note that it was damaged and then throw it away. But since I work with food, I personally find it wrong to just waste perfectly good food. So I've been stealing it. Yes, that's just throwing away perfectly good food is wrong to me morally. But then I've just been thinking, what are they going to do? Are they going to fire me? They're desperate for people to work here. We just had about 3 of our guys. We're a pretty small location. We had 3 of our guys walk, and it's actually cutting into my hours because how do I describe what I do without giving away too much about where I work? Essentially, I am the support unit for these guys. So the less guys I need to support, the less hours I work, and it's actually getting to a point where it's cutting into my hours, and they're offering literal $1,000 bounties for employees who bring in their friends to work for this company. Let's say I got caught stealing this food. What are they gonna do? Fire me?
It's a profit loss either way, right? So you would think they'd be okay with it.
They were throwing away the food anyway. The only thing that's not allowed to happen is I'm not allowed to take it home.
I guess that's their way of preventing you from intentionally breaking things.
That's what I think is going on. Yeah, just like you said, they don't want me to intentionally break things so I can take it home. I think that's what's happening, and I'm not doing that. I'm just taking the stuff that happens to break. I'm not quite that dishonest.
Work has been very interesting. We got rid of some dead weight with one of the top brass, and our company atmosphere is completely changed from openly hostile to actually kind of positive. Pay is going up, opportunities are opening up, which is great. Positivity is going up, so I think that's actually a healthy change. Though I don't necessarily enjoy going into work and doing it all the time, I would prefer to go into a workplace where people are happy versus a workplace where they are not.
Absolutely. And speaking of which, I don't actually hate my workplace either. It's just they're doing this thing I think is wrong. But actually it's very interesting. Let's see. My boss, I don't think I've ever been called a valued asset before, and this current company I'm working at, it's the first time I've ever been called that, and they've actually been very good to me. And I just wanted to say to I guess the really hardcore anti-work people out there that there are good jobs out there. It's just most of them are not good.
Most of them aren't good, and a lot of times it takes a little bit of extra effort on your part.
Yeah. And in fact, the last 2 jobs I worked were really good. It's just I lost one because of COVID. And I was dumb enough to listen to my mom and not get onto unemployment. But onto the NEET news. And it has to do with a subject we covered a little while ago. Let's see, how do we broach the subject? it's interesting because I'm the Christorian, but you were the one to actually break this to me. We covered an individual named Chris Chan a few weeks ago, and it just came to light that Chris Chan has had, I believe the word is a struggle snuggle with his mother.
Ugh.
Yeah,
How does it come to this? Holy cow.
it is so bizarre. There's always been like little hints of it, of like a weird, inappropriate relationship between Chris and his mother. But like, let's see, the news will be about a week old by the time this episode airs. But for me, it's been like a punch in the gut that I have not recovered from. Chris has basically been a fixture in my mind since he was discovered back in 2008. And this could pretty much spell the end of Christery as we know it.
He's been metaphorically living rent free in your head for a couple of decades.
Absolutely. Let's see, how long ago was that? I was probably like 16 or 17, so almost 2 decades, yeah.
Jeez. I mean, this is definitely the most major thing that I can think of that's happening in Christery. Watching it, how it's being treated, like it's just some YouTube drama.
That's certainly how Chris is treating it. What this means for Christery is at this moment kind of up in the air, but we kind of know where it's going to lead. If Chris ends up in some kind of institution, be that a mental asylum or jail, it really could spell the end of an era. And I guess that's all I really want to say about it. I'm sure any of you out there who with the morbid curiosity that I have will certainly go find it yourselves now that you know.
And we didn't even know, but it's been going on for a month.
You're right, he was doing this the whole time. Yeah, but I think we're gonna need a chaser after that dark news. The subject of this episode, as well as the NEET news we were going to discuss, all got pushed to next week because of this, and we wanted to talk about it while it was still relatively fresh. But before we get into the meat of the episode, Dexter and I are trying to build a supportive NEET community here. So why don't you consider taking the time to take a look at the NEET Discord, where all things NEET are discussed. The NEETwork Discord is a place where you can chat with other NEETs and NEET hopefuls, participate in NEETwork events, share memes, and, if you have it, promote your own content. The link is in the description below. And while we're still very small, we appreciate every member who joins in. On recording this, it really is just me and Dexter, and we're hoping to see you guys there. And tonight, we have been doing kind of heavy episodes lately, and tonight I think I want to do another fun episode, kind of alongside the Neat Nest episode. And that's where we discuss probably one of the most popular and yet youngest staples of world pop culture, and that is Japanese animation and comic books. When I was growing up, anime was a pretty obscure part of geek culture, and it was limited pretty much only to very small and late time blocks on television or VHS tapes in the back of certain rental stores. And yes, I am old enough to remember physical stores where you could rent movies from.
I am just barely in that time range. I think Blockbuster started shutting down when I was like 11.
Youch. Yeah, it was kind of like a staple, or like a hallmark moment of my childhood was the Friday night trip to, say, Hollywood Video. That was the one that I really liked. And it had just a big section of old school anime, and that's where I got a lot of my early anime watching.
Remember Blockbuster, but I always got the GameCube games from Blockbuster because like that's what I had at the time.
Right, you could rent video games.
I never really rented the movies.
Usually it was like I was allowed one movie and one game. That's how it kind of worked for me.
I mean, it's kind of funny that you mentioned like anime at the movie stores and things. I don't even think that Blockbuster in our town had anime in it. It might have, but it was so long ago, it's hard for me to remember.
That I think that's probably why I liked Hollywood Video more, is because Blockbuster always really leaned hard into like really new movies. I don't recall Blockbuster having like a lot of the older movies. They really prioritized the stuff that had just come out. And Hollywood Video had a much more extensive collection, and that's why I preferred them.
I remember liking Blockbuster, but I also I've never been a big movie consumer.
I mean, probably Hollywood Video is where I got a lot of my taste in media, and like the stuff that I like is the kind of the old corny movies, old school anime, all of that stuff. Stuff that was older than me, but I still enjoyed it. Back in those days, most people really had no idea that things like Power Rangers or Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon actually came from Japan. And if there was an anime that wasn't on television, it was really only circulated by the copying and sharing of VHS tapes. A kid growing up and seeing shows like that, you know you're watching something really unusual. A lot of Western cartoons at the time were kind of very silly and focused on comedy, and action cartoons were often poorly animated and fight scenes were really dumbed down. So seeing your first anime can come as something of a shock to a kid back then. Dexter, do you have like a first anime? What was your first like experience with Japanese animation?
So I'm a little bit younger. Granted, anime is still a pretty new media format. I think the history of it is actually something along the lines of it started back in Japan right after World War II with the Japanese puppet theaters that like shook the country because World War II basically destroyed the spirit of the people, and basically puppet theater kind of took off, and it slowly evolved into animated theater at, I think it's 24 or 26 frames a second, until we end up with, Astro Boy being first widely shown animated to the Western audiences, and then it was just cemented from there as super popular.
Right, and that was about 60s.
Yeah, that was like in the 60s. I think it was like 64.
Right.
Getting back to my first experience with it, though, wouldn't come until another 40 years later with Naruto. Would be my first experience with it. I was watching Cartoon Network as a kid, and it would air on Toonami.
I loved Naruto back in my teens, man. I remember like that first maybe kind of story arc of Naruto where I remember like they were swearing and there was some blood, and I was like, wow, they'd never shown that on TV. Now I'd been watching anime for some time, but it was like I was very used to a very like neutered for kids style localization, but Cartoon Network had some balls back then, man, to show blood, and I think someone did swear on like basically daytime television, and that was pretty cool. I loved Naruto so much that I ran it wasn't D&D, but it was like a similar kind of game set in the Naruto world. It didn't last very long, but it was some good times.
Sounds kind of neat. Now, if it depends, actually, now that I'm thinking about it.
Oh?
If we count Samurai Jack as anime, that was the first thing I would ever seen.
No, I don't count Samurai
It's
Jack.
too Western, though, isn't it?
It's too Western. There's definitely a lot of Western shows that have anime influence. I recall, Powerpuff Girls has scenes lifted right out of Dragon Ball Z, essentially, which is kind of rad when you learn that.
I mean, everybody's kind of done their parody of the popular anime, right? You got your Fairly Odd Parents, you got your...
I didn't watch Fairly Odd Parents. That was a little bit after my time. Yeah, so I mean, I hear it's good. I just don't really have any interest in watching it. But my first experience with anime actually wasn't a very mainstream show, and this is back when the Sci-Fi Channel, back when it was still good, aired anime really late at night, and I watched. It was called Iria Zeram the Animation, and a long time later, I actually did rent the tapes from Hollywood Video, and watched it in full, and I was like, "Yeah, this is still as good as it was back then." It's a weird anime, but I really enjoyed it. Iria is waifu material, in case you were curious. But back then I was probably like 8 years old, and that seeing a show like that was really shocking to me just because it was so different from any other show I'd ever seen.
Actually, for an old show, just kind of looking at screenshots of it, it actually looks pretty good.
Yeah, part of that is one of the many appeals of anime that anime looks really good, and even a poorly animated anime is better looking than even a well animated Western show. And of course, my viewpoint is entirely subjective.
Yeah, actually, I think all of my anime is better.
All anime is superior to Western animation. Ugh.
Yeah, actually, anything Japanese is just innately better.
Yes, that's actually true. Yeah, because the Japanese are a superior culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Personally speaking, I think there can be some good ones and there can be some really bad ones.
I'm sure there's a few like actually now that I think about it, there's that I think it's called Twinkle Nora or something like that that has really bad animation where it's just the keyframes and nothing else.
That sounds I think that sounds about right. Yep, it's Twinkle Nora. I've seen the memes about this. It's hilarious. The dancing scenes are great. What I'm kind of getting at is it's kind of new age, but CG. CG is real bad with anime. It is almost always bad.
CG in anime can be kind of hit or miss, but most of the time when you see it, you really see it.
I've got a challenge for you.
Okay.
Look for a single good scene in X Arm, EX Arm.
EX arm. Okay. I'll have to do that.
Look for a single scene that looks good,
All right.
because I guarantee you won't.
Yeah, I mean, to sum it up, CG in anime can be used. It can look good when used correctly, but like you said, when it becomes front and center, it always kind of looks strange.
Right.
But I think another appeal of anime over Western animation is that Western animation tends to be made with children in mind, whereas anime can target a very wide range of ages. But even in Japan, they still see anime as a children's medium, and but not only is more mature subject matter considered appropriate for a kid to see over there, more anime is made with an adult audience in mind.
I can see that. We got examples like Sergeant Frog, which definitely was made for younger audiences. You can tell it had like children in mind, but there are a surprising number of like I'm not going to say like adult themes, but more mature ideas
Right,
in like littered throughout it.
right. And Japan tends to have a more, I don't really want to say liberal, but they're a bit more open to more adult themes being in shows for children. They don't believe in like, let's see, how am I trying to say it? They don't like believe in shielding kids from it, I guess. Give them a little bit of exposure to it. Their tolerance for what is appropriate for a kid is a bit higher, I think. I guess that's all I can really say. I don't really know the reasoning behind it. But even like Western adult shows, the very like small handful that there are tend to be that they're inferior to anime too, because like I'm about to I'll describe a Western adult show to you. The animation is really ugly. All of the characters swear a lot and have tons of sex. What show am I talking about?
I mean, what you just explained is Adult Swim.
Pretty much.
It suffers really bad from just that. It's not even experimental anymore. It's tried and true successful animation in the West. I never understood it. It never really looked good. It kind of made me sick.
Yeah, exactly. And some I'm not gonna lie, some of those shows are good. Like I actually quite like Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
I liked the pilot for Smiling Friends.
I would say Smiling Friends like you said experimental a little while ago, Smiling Friends is the closest that Adult Swim has ever gotten to experimental.
And I think that's really good. One thing though about saying like Western cartoons are super ugly and Japanese ones are just way better,
Or better, yeah.
is we're primarily seeing the tried and true method for mainstream animation coming from Japan because they want to sell us a product, right? They want us to sell something that's successful.
Right.
We're missing out on a lot of the more experimental shows coming out of Japan.
That's true. There are, yeah, I don't know what else to say. Like, what shows are we missing out on?
I couldn't give you any names straight off the bat, but I mean, it's not a totally unknown fact that Japan is a little bit weird.
Yeah, it may come as a surprise to some who've seen anime. But what you're saying is like we in the West are getting anime. We're basically only getting the stuff that would appeal to a wide Western audience.
Yeah, we're arguably getting anime that's been tailored to sell to us,
That's a great point.
which is why I think it's so popular in the West, is because I wouldn't say it's challenging just because of the oversaturation of it, but
Hmm.
it's typically a higher kind of quality product that's delivered.
Right. What I've seen is that Western media in general is, especially nowadays, really, really politicized. And anime can have like thought-provoking themes, but I've never seen like an anime where they squeeze in political themes. Like the political themes of say Death Note are more complex than what you might get in a say a Western movie where the politics seems to kind of boil down to my politics are good and your politics are bad. Whereas Death Note gets into like what is the nature of justice and is it right for one person to say who lives and who dies based on their crimes, stuff like that.
I can see that. A lot of reviewers and critics like to throw opinions on things.
Hmm.
And for them, it kind of invalidates their job when you tell them, like, sometimes things are just supposed to be dumb entertainment.
Yeah, sometimes it's just supposed to be a good story and fun, right?
Yeah, like, don't get me wrong, there are definitely some shows with a more subtle suggestion and motif,
Hmm.
but typically, from what I've seen, like, there is never a case where it's trying to beat you over the head with any kind of political idea.
Right.
And in fact, a good portion of like Korean production and Japanese production does have a pretty like active social justice kind of thing to it.
Really.
Not necessarily to the point of the West, but more along the lines of, stay out of these people's business and, let them do what they want.
Hmm. I honestly can't say I've seen anything like that, but I also don't seek it out. I certainly don't like being told, "Oh, if you don't watch this thing, then you're some sort of bigot." I really don't like that. And also I've maybe they do this with anime, I can't say I've ever seen it, but, like, when people start kind of basing their politics on what they see in these movies, like, I remember this was really big in Harry Potter, right? When Donald Trump first became president, there was a bunch of people who were like, "We're the Rebel Alliance from Star Wars," and then there was another faction of people who were like, "We're Dumbledore's army."
Trump supporters are from Slytherin.
Yeah, Trump supporters are Slytherin, but I've never heard anyone say like, "You know, Donald Trump really reminds me of Frieza." Yeah, I've never seen that happen with anime before.
I definitely have. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I know I've seen cases where people have tried to like inject their opinions on like characters.
Like when the anime itself is political, what I've noticed is that it's almost always the dub that becomes political. Funimation, for instance, will buy the licensing rights to some anime, and then they'll put in I don't remember what anime this was, but like a woman accused a man of being part of Gamergate in the dub, or in Dragon Maid, the big booby dragon lady says something about like, "Oh, well, the patriarchy," when she's the last character who would be complaining about the patriarchy.
Are you talking about Prison School, the Gamergate?
I have no idea. I've never watched Prison School.
I think you might be talking about Prison School, but maybe not. One that I can think of that was heavily politicized, and granted, it touched on a pretty sensitive subject, was Shield Hero.
Okay, Shield Hero. All right. What exactly was it?
Well, obviously, the rising of Shield Hero touched on the Me Too movement. It definitely rubbed some people the wrong way.
Yeah, it definitely did. What I have to ask though is, was that a result of the Me Too movement, or was it just that the Me Too movement was happening while that story was being told?
So yeah, here's the thing: is it didn't say anything along the lines of, you can't believe any of the stories or anything. It never even mentioned the movement itself.
Yeah.
There was nothing there. All it really did was set up a story where the main character could get revenge, and it just did it in.
There was a false allegation against the main character.
So I don't think it ever actively mentions the Me Too movement, but you can definitely see kind of third parties injecting their political kind of ideologies into these media. Granted, of course, it did touch on a hot button topic for the era. So
In the West anyway. I don't know how big it is in Japan. I wanted to talk about this a little bit earlier when we were talking about how good a show looks, but another part of the appeal of anime is that anime people tend to be drop dead gorgeous, right?
right.
Right? There's a whole subculture of like waifu and husbando products, discussion, you name it, dating simulators. If you got a waifu, there's probably like a dating simulator out there for her.
So actually, you just mentioned something that kind of I just don't want to forget it, so I'm gonna say it now.
Okay.
You mentioned how like they're drop dead gorgeous, right?
Mhm.
And like you got your waifu and husbando material, but definitely not always the case. Sometimes there are really good characters that also fall into that, like Reagan Arataka from Mob Psycho, who's not necessarily unattractive, but he's not, you know.
You're right. Yeah, I could see that. Or Saitama.
Yeah, Saitama, they're kind of bland-ish.
I can see that. I might say they're the exception rather than the rule.
I think he's a fantastically written character, like very interesting, which is why people would flock to him.
Yeah, you can definitely have like a character isn't all just looks. It's also about how well they're written. But like what I notice is in the West, we're seeing a trend. It hasn't really taken off yet, but we're seeing this trend now where characters are being made intentionally unattractive in some misguided attempt to appeal to a wider audience. What game is that? Horizon Zero Dawn, where they made the main character, who in the first game was very attractive, but in the second game for some reason morphed into that one fat mukbang YouTuber person. What's his fucking name?
Nikocado Avocado.
Yeah, Nick Avocado. She looks like him. There's like side by side comparisons. It's freaking hilarious.
Her cheeks are definitely a little puffier.
Let's take like a highly regarded show, Steven Universe, where most people quite like that show. I don't. I think the characters are like well written, but they aren't made to be attractive. Like they're made to be like flawed, I guess. Does that make sense?
Right. I mean, the flaws is a really. I watched a little bit of it, and flaws are definitely like one of the themes they like to focus on for the show.
Hmm. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is like for a lot of people, these media, movies, and video games are a form of escape, and no one fantasizes about being ugly. We might like joke about it. I play a neckbeard character on Phantasy Star Online largely as a piss take, but no one really wants to be the neckbeard or like deformed person. We want to be pretty. We want to be attractive.
Right. I mean, that kicks into our like herd instinct, right?
Yeah, like an evolutionary drive to be sexually appealing. And I think overall, I guess the big appeal of anime is it grants an escape from Western entertainment, which is I mean, really going downhill. It's either overly politicized, or it doesn't look good, or it's not funny, or it's not entertaining. And anime has a very high production level, almost regardless of who it's made for.
Like I mentioned earlier, it's a product that's arguably being used to run Japan's economy to a degree.
Yeah, it's definitely a billion-dollar industry. So, seeing that the concept of NEET in Japan, known as hikikomori, has been in the Japanese consciousness for much longer than it has been in the West, I think it makes some sense that there are anime about NEETs.
Yeah, I actually know one. I think it's something like Mushoku Tensei, Jobless Reincarnation,
Okay.
which is also considered like the father of isekai.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was one of the first written, but it only recently got animated. It was really, really widely popular a long time ago, so they basically made a studio just to make this show.
Really?
And I hear that it looks gorgeous. I haven't watched it yet, but I hear it looks fantastic.
We'll have to watch it. Now that I think about it, on the NEETwork Discord, I'm trying to think of NEETwork Discord events. We could have little anime watching parties.
That could be fun.
Yeah, yeah. So that could be the first one we watch.
Right. I hear it's really, really good. The one thing about it though is you could definitely tell the way it's done how the Japanese view NEETs, and it's not in a positive light.
In Japan, the NEET, I guess, stereotype character is also not seen as a positive thing, and it's probably seen as even worse over there because just of how Japanese society is, about how being very, so you're supposed to be very conformist, you're supposed to contribute to society, and you're supposed to almost give your life away to a corporation. And that's something we definitely need to talk about in a future episode, is the toxic Japanese work culture.
Right. And in the show, anytime they mention someone who's like kind of a shut-in, they always use the word shut-in, deadbeat, and like reject. I hear those three all the time.
I think there is more NEET sympathy in America, but that really isn't too different than how the NEET is viewed over here.
I mean, it's a very boomerish view, isn't it?
Yeah, Japan, honestly, like describing Japan as a boomer culture seems apt.
What? Come on, you don't want a job?
Mm-hmm.
What are you, lazy?
Yeah. You don't want to work 16 hours a day on a good day?
Back in my day, we worked 10 hours a day, and we bought a house by the time we were 16.
Right?
What's the matter with you?
You don't want to live in a single room apartment? And admittedly, I don't really know any other NEET anime except Welcome to the NHK, which I'm not gonna lie, I haven't actually seen.
I think I've heard something about it.
Right.
It sounded funny.
Yeah, it does sound funny. I don't really know what to say about it. That could be another NEETwork Discord watching party.
Yeah, that could be cool.
But in general, anime is easy for NEETs to consume because all you need is a TV and some tapes. And nowadays you have Netflix-like services that make anime easier than ever to watch.
I mean, streaming is actually starting to replace traditional broadcasting. It's getting really weird. We're starting to see media companies creating a subscription service. Like Discovery Plus is like mind-boggling to me.
Isn't that strange? Now instead of having all of these channels, now you pay $15 a month for a subscription service.
To like one specific channel.
In that way, anime, there's another appeal to anime specifically for NEETs, and that's that anime itself takes up very little space.
And it's arguably inexpensive. Like one subscription service and you're pretty much set.
I think Crunchyroll is anime dedicated subscription.
Yes, there's Crunchyroll, and then I think Funimation might be free.
Okay, yeah. So like, if you wanted to stream anime but had no interest in, say, all of the trash that Netflix puts out, you got like Crunchyroll, and I guess Funimation has one too. And if you're willing to engage on a little bit of high internet robbery, there's a way to get anime for free. Yeah, most of it for me is like anime series that are really old and I wouldn't be able to find otherwise. Like no one was going to make money from the sale of that anime to me, so I might as well grab it for free. That's the way I see it. I don't pirate new anime.
Right.
Hmm. And all of that, all of the anime I quote unquote own is just on my hard drive. So that's a space that can be used for body pillows and figurines.
Exactly. Now you can expand your Dakimakura collection by decreasing your media selection. Speaking of which, since it's anime related, what's your go-to Dakimakura?
I have yet to choose one. I do want to talk about like waifus in a future episode, but that's going to be a bit. I want to do that for Valentine's Day. I don't want to like talk about waifus right at this very moment, but I have yet to actually like marry my waifu because there's so many good ones out there.
Like the one guy who took his what was it? His Twilight Sparkle pony to like on a date to McDonald's, and he married it like a couple of days later.
Twilight Sparkle.
You've heard of that, right?
I mean, it's not anime related, but yes, I've definitely heard of people taking like pony plushies and their huggy pillows on dates in public.
You know, it's sad to think I will never have that degree of self-confidence.
Yeah, these guys are legends for doing that. Treat your ladies right. Treat your waifu right.
You know what? If you love that Dakimakura, take it out on the date. Treat it to some McDonald's. She deserves it.
I think we've given an idea of what kind of animes our tastes kind of lean toward, but what if you were to sum it up, what kind of animes are your favorites, Dexter?
So it's a little embarrassing. I definitely don't talk about my anime tastes with people in person.
Right.
And especially because the one I like has a really bad connotation to it, which is I really like isekais.
Okay, okay.
Like, don't get me wrong, they can be really god awful, and the majority of them are really bad. But the ones that are good are really good. And I actually don't really watch it so much as I read it.
Okay.
I mostly read light novels, and I think I've read something like 30 of them in the past 2 months.
Fuck me.
No, thank you.
So 30 like light volume novels individually.
Yeah,
Okay, so like that's like a book every 2 days.
roughly.
Light novels are well, I mean it's in the name. They're just really small books, kind of like they're not like 200,000 words. They're more like 50,000 words maybe.
Yeah, they're roughly between 250 to 320 pages. 50 being about the shortest one I've seen.
Okay, okay. And for me, I find that I lean toward the more old school anime, although I do like a handful of the modern ones. I really like, I mean, Iria Zeran, the animation I think was made like 1992, or Battle Angel Elita, Akira. Akira's a really good one that I like, but I like some of the newer ones like Gurren Lagann.
You're a shonen fan, aren't you?
I do like shonen. I do like more action oriented stories, but shonen has its problems.
I know you mentioned just now, and I cut you off, was Gurren Lagann.
Gurren Lagann.
Incredible story. It's great.
I really liked Gurren Lagann.
I think that one's really well done. I am in agreement there. That's one I actually watched.
Let's see. I'm trying to think of more of the older school ones that I like. Vampire Hunter D,
Uh, Dragon Ball?
Dragon Ball Z. I basically grew up watching Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon.
Fist of the North Star.
Fist of the North Star. Hell yeah. I have like very fond memories of sitting on the couch with my big stepsister watching Sailor Moon and Dragon Ball Z.
That sounds like a cozy upbringing.
It was cozy. My big stepsister was the only reason I liked living at my biological father's house.
Well, I mean, at least there was something good, right?
Yeah, there's that. But I'm finding now I'm reading a lot more manga than anime.
Yeah, that's definitely. So I watched anime a lot
Mhm.
in my teens, but as I've kind of hit, the 20s, I've definitely switched over to reading light novels. I like the extra details that you get that you wouldn't get otherwise.
Yeah, that is interesting. With a manga, I'm not exactly sure you get like extra details, and I'm not quite sure why I started reading manga. I think it's because a lot of the stories that I got really into are complete in manga form, but never got finished in anime form. If you're a Battle Angel Alita fan, you know that the anime and movies never get past the part where Hugo dies, but the manga has gone long after that, and I think it's still going.
Same with if you're a newer age anime fan, Chivalry of a Failed Knight, which never got a second season.
Right, the light novels continue.
Yeah, but it was a fantastic story, which is it's unfortunate that it never got finished.
So at this part, I want to do like maybe it's hard to recommend like our top 2 to 3 recommended anime, but here's what I want to do. Maybe throw out a couple that like a couple recommendations that one might expect, and maybe give me one that is unusual for you, right? I can start with Battle Angel Alita, but specifically the novel or the manga, and specifically the first one. There's kind of a for Alita, there's like a sequel and a prequel, and they're not very good. But the one specifically titled Battle Angel Alita is really good.
I'm definitely probably my favorite light novel that I'm reading right now is Reincarnated as a Slime. It sounds stupid, but I'm actually really digging how it's almost turned into a political drama.
Interesting. And let's see. That's the I mean, it's probably what the title is. That's the isekai where the guy got turned into a trash mob.
Yeah,
Nice.
turned into a trash mob, and since it's an isekai, he's actually secretly OP. That's the whole gist of it. But he goes on to found his own country, and then it's kind of like making his country survive while all these other countries are trying to subjugate it in like economic, cultural, or militaristic means.
Nice.
Which I'm really digging it right now. What about your second one?
My second one is maybe this would be like another unexpected one for me, but it's called Golden Boy. Let's see. It's a comedy focused story about a guy who is this absolute goober, but he's a total genius. And another like strength of this one is that it's really short. It's only 6 episodes long. So the plot kind of goes like this. The guy will run into or he'll get a new job where he's working for this drop dead gorgeous woman. And then like through his actions in the episode, he'll kind of like prove his worth to the woman, and the woman will realize, "Oh my god, I'm in love with this guy." But by the time she realizes that, he's already moved on to the next episode. It's so goddamn funny, dude.
I do like a good comedy, which I guess is where I will go with my second anime.
All right.
Welcome to Demon High School Iruma. It's still airing. It's still pretty new, but season 1 was hilarious, and season 2 is great so far. I'm really enjoying it.
What is it about?
As the name would suggest, Iruma, he's in Demon High School. But the thing is, Iruma is a really unfortunate kid who got raised by absolutely garbage parents.
Oh.
Which has led him to have this ability called something along the lines of like danger sense, or it's basically danger sense.
Oh yeah.
Where he avoids any and all forms of like harm or danger possible, no matter what. Like I don't think he's been hit once in the entire show. Basically, the demons in this show eat humans, right?
Right.
At least they've never seen a human, but that's what their theme song's about, right? Is eating humans. So Iruma is like trying to just survive high school life in a demon world where he has no magical abilities, has never gone to high school because he had to go straight to working.
Oof.
And has never really had real friends. And so you got this just total freaking goober of a kid who's like way too sweet, surrounded by like demons who are terrifying, but also really freaking hilarious in their own right. And just the wacky things that ensue. The culture shock between demon world and human world.
Right. Right. Dealing with the magical world type stuff.
Yeah.
And for my last recommendation, I kind of want to talk about a bunch of different ones, but we're trying to keep it at least mostly concise here. My last recommendation are a couple of manga, and they're by a guy named Noriyuki Yamahana. This is definitely like not the usual kind of stuff I read, but this stuff really appeals to me for some reason. And like the two most recent ones are, I don't know the Japanese names, but one of them is called Little House with the Orange Roof, which is basically the Brady Bunch, but Japanese. Two recently divorced parents that have two kids each are kind of swindled into living in this same house together, and by the end the parents like get married and they've hashed out all of their kind of baggage with each other. And the other one, the one I kind of like more, is called Noel no Kimochi. I guess I do know the Japanese one for that. It's one of those little sister loves her older brother stories, except in this one the older brother is adopted, but the little sister doesn't realize that. And I'm vaguely aware that this is supposed to be like a porno setup, but Noel no Kimochi is actually really, really wholesome.
What are you doing, Step-chan?
It's weird, right? They never like approach a sexual situation, but the guy, just like every few pages, will draw this smoking hot woman, like full page, in various states of undress. He is so good at it, dude. That appeals to me also.
I'm sorry. What was this called? Just just for reference.
Noel no Kimochi. I'll link it to you after we're done recording.
I'll break into my third. It's a little bit unexpected given my tastes go mostly towards the isekai.
Right, that's what I want.
Toradora. I don't know if you've ever heard of Toradora.
I've certainly heard the name, but I don't know what it's about.
It's a cute romance about delinquent looking dude and your actual delinquent like girl.
Huh, all right.
And for the majority of the show, the dude and the girl are like after each other's best friends. As the show goes on and they start caring more for each other, it ends up with them actually caring for each other, and it kind of ends on like the really nice, concise end that a lot of romance animes in particular suck at doing. It actually ended, and it was a fantastic story, like great character development, just the whole thing was awesome.
Nice.
I would definitely recommend it if you're into that kind of thing. It's a really good slice of life.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Real wholesome. I like those kind of more down to earth shows. Maybe it's just because I'm getting older, but I might give Toradora a shot. But I have this feeling that there's one show that we both agree on, and I'm gonna count to 3, and we're gonna both say it. 1, 2, 3.
Berserk.
Yeah, Berserk.
Yep. Oh my gosh. It's so sad about the author.
Yeah, that's ass, but
It's so good. The manga is so well illustrated, and the story is kind of long, but it's gonna become something. It was gonna be something so good.
even if someone else picked it up, would it even still be Berserk?
I think that his aides were talking about picking it up.
So at least like someone who has an idea of what was supposed to happen could tell the rest of the story. While I like manga art, I guess it's not as important to me as the story. I want at least the rest of the story to be told. We can let Kentaro Miura's art speak for itself when he was alive.
Every picture felt like it was months in the making.
Every panel is a masterpiece in that manga. It's dark without being edgy. The characters are like, let's see, how would you describe it? The characters are
They're flawed.
yeah, they're flawed, but without being uninteresting, if that makes sense. Like Guts, for instance, is a really tough dude, but he's definitely got like he's multifaceted. The characters are really multifaceted.
He's got weak spots.
Yeah, Guts is definitely not like your very typical protagonist of a shonen anime who kind of like never gives up and always stands up for his friends.
Early on, I could argue that he would have dropped anybody except Casca.
But with that, I think I'm done talking about anime for the night. What about you, Dexter?
If you haven't seen it already, I definitely give season 1 of Shield Hero a watch. It's
Okay.
got 2019 or 2020's Best Girl.
Okay.
Give Overlord a watch. It's supposedly getting a new season and a new movie this year, which is going to be really exciting.
But to all you lovely listeners out there, thanks for listening all the way through to the end. If you like what you heard, you can help us grow in a few ways. If you're listening on YouTube, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. I'm sure you've heard it a million times before, but it helps us grow the channel a lot more than you think. And if you're listening on Podbean, leave a like and consider downloading the episode so you can take the NEETwork with you wherever you go. And if you'd like to support us in a more personal way, consider tossing some of your NEET bucks into the NEETwork Patreon. You can find that at patreon.com/NEETworkPod. Your kind contribution goes toward paying for guest appearances, paid promotion, and membership to various podcasting services. And with what's left over, we might just buy some cheeky tendies. And with that, I think I'd like to say good night and stay comfy, Dexter.
Stay comfy, Theo.